Hi, I'm Eli, and this is the story of a man who gave everything to the woman he loved for 30 years, only to discover she had been sharing herself with someone else every single day. But he didn't break. He waited. He watched until the day came that she never saw coming. My name is Henry Shaw. I met my wife, Lisa, in college. She was laughter in a crowded hallway, red lipstick on a rainy day, sunshine when I was full of storm. We married young, built everything together, 3 decades of birthdays, anniversaries, hospital visits, mortgage renewals, parent-teacher nights. From the outside, we were solid, but solid doesn't mean honest, and sometimes silence isn't peace. It's neglect, it's distance dressed in routine. It started small, a whisper from her phone when she thought I was asleep, a sudden smile at a text she didn't want to bother me with, late nights at book club, though she never brought home a single book. I asked once, she brushed it off with a chuckles laugh. Annoyed, "You're imagining things, Henry. Don't go getting paranoid in your 50s. I laughed with her, but something in her eyes didn't laugh back. Over time, I stopped asking, not because I believed her, because I started collecting pieces. Little patterns, tiny slips, the new perfume that wasn't for me, the way she started locking her phone, how she used to touch my arm when she passed, and now just walked by. She was cheating, every day, and the worst part, she didn't even try to hide it anymore. I could have confronted her, yelled, demanded, threatened, but I didn't, because somewhere inside me, a quiet voice whispered, "Don't interrupt her lie. Let her believe she's winning until she forgets you're watching." And so I did. I waited, I watched, and I started preparing for the last day. There are 2 kinds of men who get cheated on. The ones who explode and the ones who, thoughtful, observe. I was the second kind. At least, now I was. I didn't need to snoop, not really, because Lisa had forgotten something. I used to work in IT. I wasn't a tech wizard, but I wasn't helpless either. And when you live with someone for 30 years, you learn where the digital bones are buried. One night, while she was out at a late dinner with old friends, I remembered an old iPad we hadn't used in years, one she used to sync with her iCloud. It was still in the guest room drawer, underneath expired batteries and a dried-out pen. I charged it, booted it up. Same password, our wedding anniversary. She didn't even bother changing it. Messages, calendar notes, photo backups. Most of it was innocent. Grocery lists, book club events. Then a folder, labeled with a single initial, T. The first photo hit like a car crash in slow motion. Her, at the cafe on 6th Street, leaning across the table, laughing in a way I hadn't seen in years. The hand touching hers wasn't mine. Message threads filled in the rest. "Can't wait to see you again tomorrow. He has no idea. I wish I'd met you first." I stared at the screen, not angry, not broken, just still. I took screenshots, archived the chat logs, not because I wanted revenge, because I wanted clarity. I needed to know if I was crazy. I wasn't. The next morning, I sat across from Lisa at breakfast. She smiled. Casual. "You're quiet this week, honey. Everything okay?" I looked at her, really looked. I could see it now, the absence in her smile, the performance, and I simply said, "Yeah, everything's finally clear." She tilted her head, a little confused, then chuckles, laughed it off, but something in her shifted, because maybe, just maybe, she felt that I wasn't completely blind anymore. Later that day, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in a while, my friend Daniel. He was quiet on the phone, but when I told him what I'd found, he didn't react like I expected. He just said, "You always gave her everything, Henry. I'm glad you finally kept something for yourself. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to strength. Daniel had always been the kind of friend who noticed things but never spoke unless you asked. We hadn't talked much in recent years. Life pulled us in different directions, but when I told him about Lisa, about the messages, about the folder labeled T, he didn't sound surprised. He sounded tired. Thoughtful. You sure you want the truth, Henry? He asked. I already have part of it, I said. I just don't know the rest. He went quiet for a moment. Then he sighed, softly. T is Thomas. Thomas Gray. My heart stuttered. Lisa's coworker, her former coworker, marketing team, left the company 2 years ago, but they kept in touch long after office hours. Skeptical, how do you know this? Because I saw them 2 summers ago, together at Lakewood Mall, holding hands. He had never told me. Somberly, I didn't want to believe what I saw, he said. Didn't want to be the guy who plants doubt, figured maybe I misread it, maybe it was nothing. But now we both knew it hadn't just started, it had been years. That night, Lisa came home late again. Her excuse? Casual, Debbie's daughter got engaged. We stayed for cake. She smelled like vanilla and cologne that wasn't mine, and I nodded like I believed her. But something inside me clicked. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet, but I was going to make sure she remembered every day from here on out that I was no longer asleep. I printed out 2 of the photos from the iPad, folded them carefully, slipped them inside the back of her favorite book, the one she kept on the nightstand. Did she notice? Not that night, but she would. And just like that, the game shifted. This wasn't about rage. It wasn't even about justice. It was about letting her live with the same doubt she so casually gave to me. There's something strange about watching someone spiral quietly. Lisa didn't ask if I saw the photos. She didn't confront me about anything. But she changed. Her phone, once so openly handled, now never left her side. She started putting makeup on for errands. She triple-checked my schedule, pretending to be sweet, but clearly mapping out when I'd be gone. I gave her what she needed, the illusion that I was still blind. But every time she lied, I smiled, because I knew the clock was ticking. Thomas's messages grew colder. Annoyed. You sure this is worth it? Exasperated. Maybe you should just talk to him. Frustrated. I'm not built for this kind of drama. Lisa tried to hold on. Strained. You're just stressed. Insisting. He doesn't know. Trust me. Weary. We're so close to being free. But even she sounded tired. That night, after she fell asleep early, the kind of early that means emotionally exhausted, I went into the garage. The boxes were still there, our old wedding album, photo books from vacations, birthdays, baby showers, moments where I had loved fully. She had smiled back at me, and now those smiles made my stomach twist, not from grief, from clarity. I took out one photo, just one, our 25th anniversary. We were standing in front of the same cabin where she now took Thomas. She wore the same necklace back then, the one I bought her in Florence. I took that photo, put it in a new envelope, wrote 2 words on the front, full circle. Then I placed it in her glove compartment. No note, no explanation, just history waiting to speak for itself. The next morning, she drove off as usual, didn't notice the envelope. Not yet, but she would. And when she did, I wanted her to ask herself, how long has he known? What else does he know? What's coming next? That fear was never mine to carry. Now, it belonged to her. She didn't mention it that evening. No odd glances, no passive-aggressive questions. But I knew she had found the envelope. Her hands told the story. The way she gripped her wine glass tighter than usual, the half-second pause when I asked how her day was, the way she over-explained a story that had no relevance. She was unraveling, slowly. I checked the iPad. Thomas had replied to her earlier message. Annoyed. Look, I didn't sign up for this. Exasperated. I thought this was a fling, not a forever thing. Firmly. I'm sorry, Lisa. You need to figure this out. Alone. She didn't reply. For the first time, she had no answer. The next morning, she left the house early, too early. Said she had to drop something off at her sister's. I watched her pull out of the driveway. 10 minutes later, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Angela Dent. A real estate lawyer. Quiet, precise, discreet. We met once during a family inheritance case. She remembered me. Calmly. I need to prepare some documents, I said, but they can't be filed yet. Thoughtful. You want them ready but invisible, she said. Emphatically. Exactly. Lisa came home that night quieter than ever. I was in the kitchen. Eli was on the TV again. She hated that show. But she didn't say anything. She poured herself a drink, stood by the window, didn't look at me when she asked, "Have you ever regretted staying with me this long?" I turned slowly, gravely. Why would I regret watching someone I loved show me who they really are? Her hand trembled, just slightly, and for once, she didn't smile. That night I sat in bed beside her. She pretended to sleep, and I pretended to believe her. In my head, I was already rehearsing what I'd say on the last day, not to hurt her, not to humiliate her, just to remind her. Every lie has a lifespan, and hers was almost over. It was a Thursday, not just any Thursday. It was the anniversary of Lisa's mother's death, a day she always claimed to need space, to go to the cemetery, to cry alone. I never questioned it for 30 years. This time, I followed her. She didn't go to the cemetery. She drove to a small townhouse on the edge of the city. I parked a block away, waited. She stood at the door for a while before knocking. You could see it in her body. Hesitation, desperation, regret. The door opened. Thomas. He didn't let her in. They spoke quietly. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. His hands were raised, defensive. Hers clutched his jacket, like a woman begging to stay in a life already close to her. And then, he closed the door, on her, on them. She didn't cry right away. She stood still, then turned, and walked back to her car like gravity had become heavier. That night, she didn't say a word to me. Neither did I. She went to bed early. I stayed in the living room, staring at the fire I never lit. The next morning, I met Angela. "The documents are ready," she said. "Clean, simple, airtight. Dissolution papers, asset division. No drama, no debate. I didn't ask for anything more than what was mine. Because revenge isn't about taking what they love. It's about letting them sit with what they lost on their own. Then I chose the date, our 30th anniversary, not for irony, not for cruelty, but because she used to say it was her favorite day of the year. Now, it would be her most unforgettable. The morning of our 30th anniversary, she was in the kitchen before I was, wearing that soft blue dress, the one I bought her a decade ago. She still wore it on our anniversaries as if tradition could mask betrayal. There were flowers on the table, store-bought, not even her favorite kind, and a card. Inside, to 30 unforgettable years, I love you always. The words burned, but I smiled. Thank you, I said. You'll get yours later today. She nodded with a hopeful look. I wonder now if, deep down, she knew. At noon, a courier delivered a sealed envelope to the house. Handwritten name, no return address. She opened it in the living room. I watched from the hallway. Inside were 3 things. A photo of her and Thomas printed from the iPad. A copy of the dissolution agreement, already signed by me. A note, 1 line, handwritten. Loyalty is only beautiful when it's returned. She didn't speak, didn't scream, didn't even cry. She just sat, staring at the paper like it was a foreign language. I stepped into the room, calmly. I figured 30 years deserved closure, I said. She looked up, her voice cracked. So that's it, you just walk away. I nodded, firmly. No, you already walked away. I'm just finally following. She reached for me instinctively, but I didn't move. Matter-of-factly, I know you want to explain, I said, but you already did. Through every lie, every look, every message you thought I'd never see. Pleading, Henry, coldly, you gave someone else every day, so this one, this day, it's mine. I turned and walked out, left her in the silence she had once gifted me, except now it was hers to carry. The days that followed were quiet, not peaceful, just still. Lisa didn't beg, she didn't chase. The paperwork had been filed. The signatures were in. There was nothing left to argue with, and no one left to lie to. I stayed at a friend's guest house for a while, Daniel's. He never asked questions, just left the porch light on and made sure there was fresh coffee in the mornings. It felt strange, being in a space that didn't hold her shadow, but also freeing. One evening, Daniel joined me on the porch. You did it, he said. You didn't destroy her. You didn't shout. You just let the truth do the work. I nodded slowly. Turns out, the truth is louder than rage. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a photo of me, years ago, smiling, holding a newborn at the hospital. You've been carrying everyone for so long, Henry. Now it's time to carry yourself. Lisa, meanwhile, moved into a small apartment near downtown. Thomas never returned her calls. Her sister refused to speak to her after the truth came out. The woman who once controlled every room now stood alone in one. I got an email from her a week later. No subject, no greeting, just a single line. "Did you ever really stop loving me?" I stared at it for a long time, then replied, "I didn't stop loving you. I stopped pretending you loved me back." I never heard from her again. One morning, I walked into a small bookstore near the lake, looking for nothing, trying to remember who I was before all this. That's where I met Elise. She recommended a novel I'd never read. We talked for almost an hour. She didn't know my story. She didn't need to. For the first time, I wasn't someone's husband. I wasn't someone's mistake. I was just Henry. And that was enough. Spring came late that year. The trees bloomed a little slower. The sky stayed gray a little longer. But somehow, it matched me. I wasn't in a rush anymore. Lisa had officially signed the final documents. No resistance, no tears, just silence, like the kind she once gave me over breakfast when the cheating had already begun. And I had nothing more to say. I returned home one last time, not to stay, just to walk through the rooms, the bedroom we shared, the hallway where she used to wait for me to come home, the kitchen where lies were served alongside coffee. I wasn't angry, I wasn't nostalgic, I was done. I left her a letter on the empty dining table, short, quiet, final, thoughtful. You had every piece of me for 30 years. All I ever asked for was honesty. What you broke was not my heart, it was my belief in us. I'm not leaving to hurt you, I'm leaving to stop hurting myself. Then I walked out. No suitcase, no glance back, just keys on the counter, and a life no longer borrowed by betrayal. Weeks passed. I saw Lisa once, by coincidence, at the grocery store. She looked older, smaller. We didn't speak, we just nodded. The kind of nod you give a stranger you almost remember. And that was enough. Elise and I met again, not for anything serious, just for coffee. But when I told her I'd once thought I'd never feel peace again, she smiled and said, "Relaxed. Then it's good you didn't let pain define your ending." Now, I don't watch the door anymore. I don't check for phone messages that were never meant for me. I read, I walk, I rebuild, and every now and then, when I think about the man I used to be, I whisper, "You made it out," without breaking. This was the story of a man who gave everything and lost what he thought mattered most, but what he gained was far greater: a quiet strength, a clear mind, a life that finally belonged to him. Because sometimes the loudest revenge is silence, thoughtful. The strongest people don't shout, they walk away and never look back.